Welcome to the Carbonara for Congress podcast, where we address the real issues that affect the lives of people and families who live right here with us in South Florida.
Hi, I'm Michael Carbonara. On today's podcast, we're talking to Audrey Fesik, and we're going to be talking about some of the local politics and events and things going on in Broward County, Florida. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Audrey, as we know, we have elections coming up. I'm running for Congress of Florida's 25th district. My background, an entrepreneur, first-time candidate, very similar to your background. I know you've been in a lot of businesses, you've been in marketing, and you're known as sort of a disruptor, and were elected recently in the past year or so to the Pompano City Commission.
So I will have to say first, welcome to the crazy train of politics.
Yeah.
It's something I didn't do either, right? So I didn't know, but it's actually where I think once you realize you want to help people, then you realize you found a new home in it. And it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience so far, it seems very welcoming. People are looking and hopeful to have some fresh ideas, people that are safe from the outside, that are trying to change it up and do good, because they're kind of stuck of the stagnant way of things that have been done in the past. How has that been different for you compared to, say, your colleagues?
That's exactly the same, actually. We have had in Pompano Beach, we've had a lot of things that have been explained to us as, well, that's just the way we've always done them. And unfortunately, if you know in business, that's not an acceptable answer ever. Right. And so I've been called a disruptor, and at first I felt like that was really negative, but the residents seem to think that it's a crazy positive, because I am challenging old beliefs and challenging old ways that they've always done things and making it make sense.
Sure. What are some things that you say you kind of spoke up about that caused an uproar as being a disruptor? Anything particular as far as development or what's going on in the local community?
Yeah, so development's not bad by its own nature, because you have to change, you have to adapt anything you do. Mm-hmm. But what we've had is a lot of the same people involved in the same projects and involved in the same direction of the city, and in some ways those things have overlapped. And then when those things overlap too much and time goes by, people get complacent or comfortable. And then they think they're the ones in the driver's seat, and they've forgotten that the residents are actually the ones in the driver's seat. And the residents elect officials who are the ones to be the voice of the residents. And that's where I think I was the disruptor a little bit, because when I won, it went from a 4-2 vote, and they assumed everything was going to just go swimmingly, to a 3-3, where now we actually have to have tough discussions, because you have to earn each vote that you're going to get.
Yeah, I think that's I think we see a lot of that happening. People are paying attention a lot more than they had in years past, and I think people are asking for accountability. And that's what I see. People are upset with kind of the status quo, the career politicians, the way things always have been done. Mm-hmm. In Broward County and Pompano, what are some of the things that people are really saying, we need to change this, we need to, have focus on this issue? We've seen a lot of changes here, especially during COVID, so many people moving down. Really the demographics have been changing, the economy's been changing, people are worried about affordability, people worry about gentrification. I mean, there's a lot of very rapid changes in South Florida, say in the last 5-10 years. What do you think about what are the people really focused on?
I think you've hit every single one of those issues that is important to everybody in Pompano Beach. First, though, I want to start with saying I'm so happy that we have people paying attention, and you're right. So we've had some glitches in our Pompano Beach podcast. So we do a Granicus, and we record all the meetings, but we also do a live streaming on YouTube for our commission meetings and our CRA meetings and some others. And what's been interesting is the past couple months, there's been some glitches where it's dropped out. Mm-hmm. And finally, after just recently got an answer, the reason why. The reason why is because we would never have more than 100 people or so on average viewing our commission meetings. And lately, over the past year, we're now over 1,000. Oh, wow. So they had to actually upgrade our bandwidth and whatever, technical specs they needed to do, because we actually have more people paying attention.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
So
that's a 10 times increase in a very short period of time. I think that kind of resonated. People are really engaged. The last couple of elections, I think people really see how much, not just president level, but local government really impacts your lives. Going back to COVID, we saw how much control the local towns had, because while the rest of the country was locked down, Florida was open. We were open for business. People were, allowed to leave their homes. They could go to their church. Maybe not places like Miami Beach, they were locked down, but that actually caused more people to come to Broward, because Broward had that freedom, and people realized, hey, we can do things differently. We don't have to listen to the bureaucracy. We can actually have control of our own destiny here a little bit.
I have people that are now neighbors that were stuck down here during COVID. They were visiting, and then they just sort of got stuck here. They ended up staying here for over a month, and then they decided that it was time to make the move. So I have new neighbors because of it, because of COVID. But you're right. No, we were open for business, and we were realistic about what we needed as to keep businesses alive and surviving and residents out. And I think we had pretty decent restrictions in place, right? We made common sense of things. So sure, while in the beginning you take your distance and keep your distance, and then once after we figured out, okay, now we have some plans in place. Now we can make sure that that people will know what to do for themselves. I think that's the most important part, right? We have our own personal accountability. Like, we're all grown-ups and we know how to behave, ideally. So I think that's part of it. That was appealing to people who were otherwise told that they had to behave a certain way and were treated like children.
Yeah. No, I remember that I had some friends coming down from New York, and they were like surprised, like, what are you guys doing down here? You guys can leave your houses, you can, go to the store, you can hang out with friends and family. And they were shocked at the level of freedom that we had here while the rest of the country was locked down. And I think that might have been a big contributing factor to this, they call it red wave in Florida, because people saw that and they kind of grabbed the momentum of itself, saying, we need to keep this a free state. And I think that's really a fight that's going on now. They're talking about redistricting now because so many people moved down. But I think people are concerned about freedoms, and they want to be able to have a place where it's safe and a place where they have economic opportunity. Do you think Broward is a driver in that? Do you think that people are wanting the same things, or because
Absolutely.
It's traditionally a very liberal place?
Well, Broward is, even though it's traditionally liberal, I think the reality is that people realigned with what they wanted after COVID, right? You had a lot of time to sit with your family members, like marriages either won or didn't.
Yeah.
I think families and friends and work situations, I think you had a lot of time to reevaluate during COVID, right? So we had a lot of flexibility and freedoms, but we also had this focus on technology, where we saw how quickly technology was able to bring us back into, or back, I guess, up to date, so people could work remotely. And guess what? Things were still getting done, right? So it was a reteaching of old processes, and I think that then took this turn to where we are now, and people also prioritize different things. So where maybe years before COVID, everybody's like, build, build, build. I think everybody took a step back and said, you know what, being that we actually did spend time outside or walking around, having the walkability or having the green spaces or having the ability to do what we wanted to do with our families and have time with our family was and is going to be really important to us. Yeah. And so we need to make sure we're protective of those spaces too.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that continue. A lot of businesses move down here, and with those businesses, it takes time to set up, but then you have all the people coming down from employees to come to those businesses because we have better tax treatment or maybe a higher quality of living than some other places, more freedom.
No winter.
How do we protect the people that maybe not direct stakeholders of the new tech coming in, the new job opportunities coming in, or people coming down, building more houses, development, maybe the cost of real estate's going up. How do we protect the people, say, that are in fixed income, that maybe retired? How do they not get priced out of the market and have affordability while we progress?
That's a loaded question, but we do have a massive, especially so in my district, a lot of people align it. So I'm in District 1 in Pompano Beach, and that a lot of people align it with the beach, which is part of that, right? And it's very affluent. But I also have neighborhoods just that are west of, they're east of Federal and even west of Federal, that have people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. So I have people that are living on fixed incomes in co-ops. They've had them for forever. They bought them a long time ago. This is an issue for them because as we do get priced out, taxes either going up, their co-op or their HOA fees are going up. Yeah. With the condo, new rules and regulations at a state level. I understand it's for safety and it makes sense, but also we have to make sure that we're protecting the people who have invested there for a long time.
Right.
And so we have to, welcome the new, but keep the old, right? Or protect the old.
I mean, going through COVID, I had friends, in Miami and downtown, and a lot of them got priced out of the market because there are so many people moving down here. There wasn't enough housing, and they were told maybe 2 months before their lease, saying, "Hey, your rent's going up $1,000. Your rent's going up $1,500." And I knew a lot of people that were living in downtown for years that had to start moving further and further out because it just got so expensive. And I think we're seeing some corrections in now that, but we need to think about that because we do want progress, we do want economic development, but we do need to protect the people that have been here that actually made all that possible to begin with. So you were telling me about the downtown and the waterfront's kind of a controversial issue right now in Pompano Beach. What's going on with the residents and what's happening there?
Well, we have a phased new development project, which has been sort of lobbied for and promoted for about 30 years now, from the very inception to where we are now. It's one of those public-private partnership deals, and I sort of inherited this master development deal. But part of the issue is it's the same issue. It's the same design since about 2014 or so. I think maybe it might be off a year or so, but it incorporates a drainage water ditch through this quote new downtown, and it seems like a massive amount of square footage waste of space that we would then have to be responsible to maintain as a city, when we could potentially try to put fountains and or walkable space and maybe have ways to monetize that area without having the need to maintain it. So these are some of the decisions that, on paper they look pretty pictures, but in reality, it's the common sense application that we're talking about, and how we either monetize it as a city or have it be a drain on the city's resources.
So it's one of those, it's there, it's 10 years old, it's not the highest and best use, but because people are doing things that have always been doing it, they're not actually being proactive and doing the right thing that actually benefits the community. They're just kind of just recycling what they already had.
They're recycling ideas, and in some cases, they're pushing some of the same ideas. This was a project. I think one of the things I discussed before, that some of our consultants, was her daughter's sort of gold star, which I'm proud of her daughter, and at the time it was probably very forward thinking. But when you apply it to a city that is being conservative with their funds for taxpayer benefit, the cost to maintain that over however many years versus to change it now before we build it, first the cost to build it, but then the cost to maintain it. If you look at that cost over, let's say, 20 or 30 years, where it could either be a drain on the city's resources, or it could be something where we can monetize it and make it work better for the community, then we maybe need to look at how we can reorganize that concept. So I think that's the common sense portion I'm always sort of looking for, is how can we make this the best it can be, and then also make it make sense, not just short term but long term.
I think that's really where an entrepreneur or a business person background really comes into play, because I'm doing something I think a little bit differently. I'm running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz for the 25th District of Florida, she's been a lifelong career politician since 1992. So when you have bureaucrats that are career politicians, they don't necessarily think of down the road what's the best case or best value for the residents. They think about, well, how do I solve this problem, check the box and move on. So I think just maybe your background as a disruptor, bring this to the attention of the community. I think that's what really, you need community support for ideas. So if you can introduce something, let people know about it, I'm sure that people are going to react and say, hey, you're right, this makes a lot of sense. Maybe we should think something. You said you're having from 100 people to now 1,000 people. How do you get more? I mean, make it more people pay attention, engaged. Are they communicating? Because I think that if more people were aware of these things, they'd speak up. When something's, say, controversial or emotional or pulling your heartstrings, people speak up. So I think maybe somebody as a candidate, we need to think about how do we get people involved and interested, because these things affect their day-to-day lives. It may not seem exciting or glamorous, but it's their taxes, it's their where they bring their kids and their community. It affects their daily lives, and we need to get people more involved in those decision-making processes.
And I think everybody likes something pretty, right? Everybody wants the best for their community. I don't think anybody comes out and says, "Oh, I want to be a disruptor." It's not that. It's we have also career politicians in Pompano Beach. We have some people who have been there.
Well, to me, a disruptor just means common sense against an antiquated, old way of thinking of bureaucracy.
Right.
We're bringing common sense by disrupting.
Right, and that's what it should be. So, like I said, like you were mentioning, you're running against somebody who's been there for a long time and who has the same sort of thought processes. We're sort of in the past couple of years, we've been shifting the thought process and raising attention for Pompano Beach, where basically now we are asking those questions. There's sort of some new blood, and and I think that's where it should also apply as we go right up the chain, right? When you have a bit sense of business, and you do, obviously, you do look at things from a different perspective, because you're not just looking at what the pretty picture is. You're looking at how I get there. You're looking at the processes. You're looking at long-term benefits. You're looking at every piece of the puzzle. And that's the interesting thing about what you bring to the table, I think, as well, right? Or that what you can bring to the table.
We're goal-oriented. It's
Right.
not about, checking a box or just, putting a project together, spending other people's money. It's about bringing value and having a net positive rather than just spending people's money, which nobody wants that to happen, and they don't really have a say in it. And people are upset.
Well, the people who are the most upset are the people who realize that their money has been misspent. And I think that's been one of the great things that we've had happen within our state is having Blaze go all over with the FAFO movement, if you will, and really find where we are missing the ball here. And I don't fault anybody, right? So when you do things the same way you've always done things for a certain amount of time, if you think about it this way, people have increases in their increases in business and everything else. So I don't fault people for doing things the way they've always done them. It's just that when you realize there may be a better way, it's time to change that. And you also can realize people are creatures of habit. So if they know that they can go to that well to get fed, and they realize they can get a little fatter every time they go, they're going to keep doing that. So it's just a matter of holding people accountable and changing things. And so by being a disruptor, it's not negative. It's more so a positive in terms of I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure that this is running as efficiently as possible. I'm going to do this, and so that we can continue to evaluate and make sure that even 5, 10, 15 years from now, we're constantly reevaluating and making sure that our processes serve the people.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think in any part of life, but especially in politics, I think if you're a career politician, there's a complacency. If you're there too long, you're very comfortable. You don't need to rock the boat. You don't need to be innovative. You already have a very comfortable position. And ultimately, I mean, we know what's going on. Affordability is harder. There's 47 gangs in Broward County right now because open borders and defunding police movement, and we had judges and DAs across the country that weren't holding criminals accountable, repeat violent offenders accountable. And I think that as a country and in Broward County, everybody's looking for a change. They want more opportunity. They want progress, but they also want to keep Florida what it is. They want it still beautiful. They want the nature here. And I think we need candidates that really protect Florida, protect our safety, support the police, but we need to also make it economically feasible for the people that are here. Like I said, that won't necessarily be a part of new development or new jobs because they put in their time. They should be able to live here comfortably for the rest of their lives. So it comes down to more freedoms, lower taxes. We have the tax reform that's going to effect January 1st. So there's no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on overtime, and increased child tax credits. I mean, I know right there that's going to help people everyday lives to be more affordable, to have more money to spend, to basically be able to have a family. I've met people here in Florida, in Broward County, that said they didn't have enough money to have a second baby because daycare cost too much. And there were 2 working parents, and they had 1 child, and they said, it's too hard. And so we've gone so far from what the American dream used to be to a point where 2 full-time working parents are struggling to have 2 children. I mean, they literally can't. And that's a real problem we need to solve.
So I'm going to be a grandma in April for the first time. So my
Congratulations.
oldest, thanks. My oldest is having, and his wife are having a baby, and it's baby girl. So it'll be baby in April. But you're right. They're trying to figure out their lives, and both of them work, right? And they're both are doing well in each of their fields. And their concern also, because they live and they're in Nevada at the moment, but they're looking at potentially moving to South Florida. Of course, I'm lobbying for South Florida, but as a near and dear, right? But also they have family. She has family on the East Coast as well. But it is tough, and they're looking at housing prices, and when you're starting out and you are they're in their late 20s, and so when you're starting out in your late 20s, you have a good job. You've had a good job for a couple of years. You've got 2 dogs, and you're going to have a baby, and you want to have another child. You have to be able to have something that you can purchase that aren't being purchased all by a bunch of, real estate investors or developers and things
Yeah.
like that, because, they are the next generation. So we have to protect that ability that to be a sort of a cradle for the next generation.
Yeah. Well, home ownership is probably the easiest and most common way for Americans to accumulate wealth over their lifetime. I mean, it's almost like their own retirement plan, because once you pay off the mortgage, you have all this equity built up. And when you're renters, you just don't have the opportunity. You end up, getting older, you have kids, and you can't leave anything behind to them. Or, God forbid, you're older and you have problems, you have medical issues. You can't tap into those assets to take care of yourself.
Well, from a safety standpoint, I'm going to jump in on this because it's something that's been rampant across South Florida, and it's something that happens on a federal level, and we don't have any power to change it. I know that there's other businesses that can operate in residential areas. And so you're talking about safety and police activity and drugs and things like that, and gang activity, which is sort of related. We have a huge issue with people that are reliant on, so there's these sober homes or transitional homes.
Yeah.
And the ones that are run well are run and you would never know. But the ones that are run as a business and are infiltrating some of our neighborhoods are bringing some of that drug activity to our neighborhoods. And, I have one street that in my district that has had two operating illegally, and it was jumping through hoops for the city to be able to try to finally shut them down, because it just took way longer than it needed to. In fact, the day that I went to go visit with the neighbor, and I walked the street with them, there was 10 kids on that street. They didn't feel comfortable having them walk around just on their little half of a block. And the day that I left, I was there for about 45 minutes. We walked the whole street back and forth. As soon as I left, I got a text message, and one of the tenants at the sober home tried to stab another tenant.
Oh, wow.
In the street that I had just been standing in. So, and this is in an area.
How is a place like this operating illegally? How are they setting up, and how are they even getting contracts if they don't have the permits and everything else to operate?
There's lots of different ways between because of federal protections related to disabilities, so the American Disabilities Act. There are supposed to have some sort of certifications, but then the certifications, every department relies on the other department to police them.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity for the time to elapse where people can still, even once they get shut down, they're still making money and they're still causing problems in the neighborhoods. So, I mean, those are some things that when you're talking about safety and neighborhoods, right? That is one of the things where I fully support anybody who's sober and wants to get help.
Sure, I mean, you have to. I mean,
right.
we have a lot of homelessness and a lot of it from drug use here in South Florida, and it's a real issue. I mean, there's human trafficking, all from this, and those people are on the streets. Those people need to be helped.
Yeah.
But you can't have that in a place where you're having little kids running around in the streets, and it's just,
And you don't want to separate two, because there's an idea of you have to reintegrate into society. I get that, but it has to be monitored in a different way. And look, it's never going to be perfect, because life's not perfect. There's never going to be an answer that fits every mold, but we have to make sure that the residents who live wherever they live have the rights to safety first.
it's common sense.
It's common sense.
You don't put a rehabilitation center on a suburban street with families and little children. It doesn't make sense.
And you're running a business with people coming in and out. That's not what they chose, and that's not what their investment chose. So there are some things on a federal level that I think that make sense, that do trickle down to how local municipalities, cities, and even counties can deal with things or can't deal with things because their hands are tied. So, but safety is important.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest factors. I mean, we're seeing violence across the country. Some of it's race motivated. A lot of it's mental illness. You see these random attacks, and a lot of them are repeat offenders, arrested multiple times and then just get released. Most of them are mentally ill, and these wants to be seen on the news all the time. And so we have a real mental illness issue in this country, but it's not really being addressed. It's just kind of catch and release and let the people back out. But people need help, but everybody else needs to be protected. And it's all about common sense and holding people accountable. And we need that in Broward County, especially as more people come here and there's more families here. It's really a priority. We can't function as a community if we're not safe in our community.
Well, in some instances, other states are literally shipping people down here to Florida to basically, wouldn't you want to be rehabilitated by the beach, right? And the problem is that they break the rules and then they are just turned out the door.
Or the states just want to get people out of their communities and send them to somebody else.
Yeah. I have heard from multiple people in the industry that There are literally buses that come down every year.
So it's your problem, not ours.
Correct. And then, nobody wants to leave paradise once you're here.
No, Florida's beautiful.
You don't have to do winters if you've got, so, and I think we have to separate the issues because there's mental health issues. Mental health issues many times are combined or I guess compounded by drug use.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's also just homelessness for the people who just can't afford. So like they get lumped together a lot, but they really should be more separated in terms of there's some people who truly just need help.
Yeah. One thing I really like to look into, and I think what RFK is doing and Maha's doing, it's kind of, for me, I think they can have a real impact on the mental illness because a lot of the mental illness is actually related to the foods we eat, maybe the medications we take or the toxins in our food. I read a study not too long ago about 1/3 of the homeless actually, they have mental illness and they have toxic levels of aluminum and mercury. So we have toxic metals that are actually causing the mental illness. So it's not just getting people off the street, it's about identifying what's causing mental illness and actually treating it properly. Because I haven't seen any of these institutions really go into the root cause. And a lot of it is another bureaucracy where it's big business and the more money you put into a problem, the worse it gets.
Help isn't temporary. Help is a permanent thing.
Yeah.
And so, and I think, like I said, like you mentioned, there's so many different veins in which we have to sort of address these things, and the root cause is part of it. Food is massive. Did you know that Florida has lost a massive amount of actual farmland to development?
I'm not surprised.
Our Florida, we're known for Florida oranges.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I just read some studies. We're losing natural habitats. We're losing our farmland. We're losing things at a scary rate. And at some point, there is that level of balance that we need to maintain.
We need balance. We need to understand that you can have progress without sacrificing things that actually are self-sufficiency in food, because we want to control our own supply chains as locally as possible. Because when you don't, then you kind of lose the foundation. And you become dependent on other things, and when there's a disaster, it's hard to function when you have to rely on so many external sources. But if we have supply chains here, our food here, our shipping here, it makes Florida self-sufficient.
It could be. We could live off of our water, and we have the ocean, so the fish are plentiful. But that's the other part that's really interesting too. Is from a federal level, we could potentially make some changes to how we are able to, like for plastics, right? The PFAS. I'm sure you've heard plenty about those.
Yeah.
So we've now actually it is a federal level. At a federal level, we have rules that are drinking water and has to be of a certain quality. It went from, I think, somewhere around 700 parts per million to now 4 parts per million. That's supposed to come into effect, I think, in 2031, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that because I spent like 4.5 hours with our utilities department because this was really one of those things that, again, it affects local governments because local and county governments are going to be held to this water standard for the quality of water for their residents. But yet, from a manufacturing standpoint, the people who are manufacturing these forever chemicals are still allowed to operate them. So I think if we try to blanket the expectations by starting where they're starting and try to make sure we find some better ways to restrict them even being into the community as best we can while not stopping development, right? Mm-hmm. Or progress or economic development. But we don't just pass it down to the end user, which is the taxpayer. Yeah. Because the taxpayer has to pay for the utility bills and the infrastructure and all of that. So, and then if we eliminate taxes in Florida, which I would love, and so would my husband, and there are probably many other people I know, we have to make sure that cost of living doesn't go somewhere else, or that expenditure and that obligation, we need to be able to pay for that. And I don't know that we'd be able to pay for it through hotel taxes alone.
Yeah. So, and another part of that, just the cost of living, there's a lot of talk, FPL, Florida Power and Lighting, electricity is going to, increase very soon. And it's increased a lot because a lot of it is recuperation from the investment from hurricane cleanup and repairing infrastructure. And I think, people are scared of AI data centers, and some people don't realize data centers have existed for a long time, for decades. Every time you go on the internet, every time you send an email, every time you're on a mobile app on your phone, you're engaging, you're working with a data center. I think one of the ways that we can benefit, because I have experience in this myself, but I don't think we should push away the data centers, bring them here, but let them pay for the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. They need the energy, but let them pay for it and offset the cost for everybody else. Right. And other states are doing this. I've done this in other states. I think that's a great way to help the people, but still provide a service and bring industry here at the same time. It provides jobs and all types of things. And that could actually offset the cost of living by bringing those industries in here.
Well, I think that's something we would even love to do on a local level when it comes to development, right? If there's a need for it in the community, then that's fantastic. If there's a extra strain, like, so if you're going to take so I'm looking at a data center is one version of it. If you look at it from there's a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex on a bunch of properties, and you're going to now turn it into 400 people, then I think then maybe we need to work on making sure that the developers pay their share to fix infrastructure, and maybe that's how we soften the burden to the day-to-day user. I love the idea of a data center in terms of making sure we sort of make it work for us and make sure that it does the right things for us.
Yeah.
I think I just saw something on Instagram or online somewhere, but like Finland and the Nordic countries are doing these data centers where they're building them underground because it's naturally cooler, right?
Yeah,
and we don't have that necessarily a lot here, but the geothermal, and then they're using it, they're capturing the heat generation, and they're using it to heat their areas and cities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I've been to Iceland quite a bit, and they actually almost have, for the residents, have free electricity, free heating because of that.
That's cool.
And they bring the data centers in, the crypto miners bring them in, but it's a net positive for the community because they use the resources or the money, the revenue generated for that to give back to the people, and the natural geothermal and the heat heats the homes.
So yeah, I think that's the type of common sense thinking that I think we need to apply, right? So that it makes sense, it benefits everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be one-on-one, one-to-one. There's always ways you look at a situation and what's the best opportunity if you look at all the different angles. And I think as a business person, that's how you look at things. It's not like one-to-one. You see all the different areas, how you can make it work, and all the different benefits and all these different connections or fill the gaps. And I think that mindset's what's needed to actually create value or net positives into communities where, like I said, career politicians don't think like that. They think, well, if I need to solve a problem, I'll just raise taxes because that's the only tool they have.
Right. I go back to my dad every time, and I kind of use this in business, and I use this in life, and I use it everywhere. So when I was learning to drive stick shift, was in my learner's permit, right? He had a Ford Thunderbird he said, if you can learn to drive stick shift on this car, you can drive any stick shift anywhere. And he was right, because it was a sticky gear. But between the clutch and the gear and the shift and, the clutch and the gas, he said to me all the time and it stuck in my head, you have to find the happy medium. You have to find the happy medium. You have to find the happy medium.
Yeah.
And it's true, because that's the same way in business, right? Somebody's going to come at you, and there's going to be this all the way at 0, and then somebody's going to come at 100. And when you take and you filter in what's best for the business and what's best for the people and what's best for the situation, best for the tech, and you look at things from a 360 degree angle, and you started looking at all the different ways, naturally, you sort of come back to a center, and you find
it's
that
like a synchronicity. Everything, finds the equilibrium.
Right, and you find that common area. And I think career politicians don't know how to find that. Business people do.
Yeah, I agree. No, just going back to what you just said about learning to drive. When I remember I got my permit, my uncle made me drive in rush hour traffic in a stick shift, first time I ever drove, and that was the scariest moment. And I was stalling out in the middle of like this major interstate, it was just, but that's how I learned this stick shift in the hard way.
The funny thing is that once you learn, you never unlearn. And I went to Ireland, and I ended up doing it backwards, which was an interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So your feet are the same, but your hands are different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's exactly it. I think business people, and I've said this before. I've been asked a few times. You as a background as an entrepreneur, you're doing things differently as opposed to ways. The bureaucracy with career politicians. How do you think that's going to be different? And I have to remind people that no, the career politicians is the different way of doing things. All of our founding fathers, from John Hancock to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, Franklin, they were all entrepreneurs. Our country was founded by entrepreneurs. George Washington had his corporate desk right next to his desk in the Oval Office for the government. So they all had their own businesses. They all gave back to the community by serving in government. The government was not their job. They didn't get rich by government. They were sacrificing to give back. And I think if we have entrepreneurs of all different industries, whether it's tech or health or construction, whatever it might be, the idea is you have all these people that know how to create value and build and innovate come together, whether it's at local government or in DC, and actually build something better than where you found it. Because now we're in a situation where the current generation, the youngest generation, is the first generation in American history that actually has less than their parents. So we're going backwards because of what these career politicians have done to us. And we need to bring that innovation of entrepreneurship to drive our government rather than the government to react to businesses, to regulate, to overtax, to overburden, and take away our freedoms.
So I'm a 1978 kid, and so I am, I guess, squarely in this Gen X and this. But, so people that are over 40, I would say, so you included, we were raised where this technology boom was happening, right? So we remember the old, but we remember the new.
Yeah.
And we were in this crazy mishmash of generational change, right? So this I would liken to being in the middle of the Industrial Revolution.
Sure.
Because that's really what we are.
Yeah.
And so we have this unique perspective to see how things were done, to see how things will be done, and to be able to maneuver those changes very easily. So I feel like there's a lot of very intelligent folks that are now hitting, I guess you say, middle age, and cringe when I say that a little bit, but you're hitting sort of this the next part of your life, and now you have enough life experience behind you to understand everything you've learned and apply it in a way that you can now apply it for the benefit of the next generation. Because when you have children, obviously, any parent feels that way. You want to leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
And the same for our community. That's a labor of love. And so that's what kind of led me to to politics, if I can even speak. But that's what led me to politics, was that I want to make sure that the community is left better than I found it, and the world, in my little corner of the world, is left that way. So I think you're right in terms of your ideas, and I think you're right that people are finally having enough. And if you look at the people who are being the new disruptors, and you kind of pigeonhole them into an age range, I think you're going to find that a lot of them are the ones who were now saying, hey, listen, we've been sort of quiet long enough, we've paid attention, and now it's our turn to step up for our next generation. You've had it. The way you've done it, it's not working anymore. So we did it in technology, and now it's time to do it in government. We need to take it back. And when you look at what's being applied from these disruptors, you potentially, and me, and anybody else in politics that's trying to change things for the better, what we're seeing is people who actually are taking it back to the old school. I don't want to say, like, there's a lyric in there, right?
Taking it back. Fundamentals.
Yeah. But you're taking it back to fundamentals, common sense, and not taking advantage. We all want that. So we were taking it back to something that was the founding fathers. Does it make sense? Yes. Does it make sense? No. Then don't do it.
Yeah, it is as simple as that. It's not complicated. And I think from people from outside that don't understand how politics works, it's not some big mystery. It is simple between right and wrong. I mean, of course, there's nuances and things like that. But at the end of the day, everything a candidate does in office, it's got to be for the American people, and it needs to have a net positive for your constituents.
So maybe I'll turn the tables on you a little bit, because it's your podcast, right? But you talked about affordability. We both did, but from your point of view, at a federal level, what is it that you think you could bring to the table? Like, if you were in Congress right now, what are some of those ideas you have?
I think what we need to do is, number one, is reduce the tax burden on most Americans. People need more money in their pocket. That's number one. The cost of living, we have inflation, but at the end of the day, people need to actually be able to buy the things to be able to afford what they have in their life. So we need to lower taxes and get rid of basically inefficiencies in government.
One of the things I like most about hearing everything you're talking about is that it's you're talking about it at a federal level, right? But it's a lot of the same conversations I've been having on a very local level.
Yeah.
And the reality is that people's concerns, they are very granular. And so the more that you can potentially, I guess, change on a federal level that we can end up benefiting from, it's great to see that you have such a reach and you are relatable and you're a human. So many times we think of politicians being career politicians and just sort of being in their ways or operating under a different system. And I think what's refreshing is the energy you bring and the humanness, and that you really are, I call it people-tician.
I think that's pretty universal. People want the same things, whether you're left or right. People want to live a good life. They want to protect their family. They want a good paying job. They want to have a house. They want freedom. I mean, that's universal across whatever party you're from. You want the same things. It's just how we get there. That's what we need to focus on, by creating opportunity and freedom to get there.
Right. So you are universally appealing because common sense knows no party.
Yeah, common sense has no party, whether you're left, right, center. I think we all can agree on the basic common sense, and that's what I plan to do with policy in D.C. is instill common sense policies that benefit all of us. Look, I live in the district. I have 2 young daughters. I want a community where they can grow up, where they're safe, where they have opportunity, where they can get an education, and not have to worry about crime or worry about can they afford to live here. I mean, this is our home, and we need to make it best for everyone.
So I feel like we probably have some work to do on making sure that the residents we're serving are also registered to vote.
Yeah, I mean, everybody here has a stake in the community. They have a stake in our future. It's their, really their responsibility, but they should be engaged. They should take this opportunity to register for vote, register to vote by mail, and participate in this process because it determines their future.
I think what's most important about that is a lot of times people see politics and from the top down, and they really should be looking at it from the ground up.
Absolutely.
So every decision we make, from a very hyper-local level, and knowing that your representative is a neighbor, right? They have a vested interest in the community that they're serving, and they care to make it the best it can be. And I think that's going to be very exciting to see our disruptor crew, if you will, continue the work and work for the people and work towards common sense goals. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's show. It's available on replay, so click the like and subscribe button and forward it around to your friends. Let them get involved too. Remember, to really make your voice heard, you need to vote. Click the link below or scan the QR code to request a vote by mail ballot. Your vote can really make a difference. Thanks again, everyone.